Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I can see a room full of eager, health-conscious faces. And I want to tell you right off the bat that what we're going to discuss today might completely change how you think about your health after 60. Curious? My name is William. I've spent over 40 years working as a physician, diving into metabolic health, preventative medicine, and chronic disease management. I've walked thousands of patients through their health journeys, and I can tell you what I'm about to share with you today is something that most people, even well-meaning doctors, don't fully understand. And it's not because they don't want to. It's because the system we've built for blood testing and routine checkups often misses what matters most. Pause. I want to start with a story. This is about a patient I'll call Mrs. Thompson. She came to me last year, 67 years old, fully retired, vibrant, but frustrated. She had spent decades being good with her health. Annual checkups, multivitamins, low-fat diet, all the usual advice. And yet she was feeling inexplicably fatigued, a little anxious, sometimes dizzy in the morning, even though every test her primary doctor had ordered came back normal. Now, most of you in this room might have felt that way. Going in for blood work, hoping for reassurance, only to be told everything looks fine. But your body still whispers, still aches, still signals that something is off. I remember sitting across from her, looking at her chart, and realizing something striking. The routine panel of tests she had done for years, cholesterol, basic metabolic panel, thyroid, vitamin D, you name it, none of them told the story her body was screaming at me. And then something amazing happened. We ordered a few different blood tests, ones that aren't commonly discussed, and the results revealed a hidden metabolic imbalance. It was subtle, but it was life-altering. Once we addressed it, with targeted nutrition, specific lifestyle adjustments, and monitoring, within 3 months, Mrs. Thompson was transformed. Her energy returned, her brain clarity improved, and the subtle risk factors that could have developed into serious disease were caught early. I promise you, this was not a miracle. It was science. But it's science that most doctors aren't applying routinely, especially for people over 60. Today, my goal is simple. By the end of this hour, you're going to know exactly which 4 blood tests many of you have been wasting time on, and I'm going to show you why they often do more harm than good, and you're going to learn the 4 blood tests that could literally save your life. And I don't mean someday down the road, I mean within the next few years, because catching these issues early changes everything. You'll leave this room with the knowledge to have smarter conversations with your doctor, to advocate for yourself, and to truly understand the language your body is speaking through your blood. Now, let's dive into why this is happening in the first place. And I want to start with something most people don't realize about our bodies as we age. Imagine your body as a city, a vast metropolis with a complex plumbing system, an electrical grid, factories, and transportation routes. Every organ is like a different factory. Your heart is the power plant, pumping energy and oxygen through the city. Your liver is the recycling center, processing waste and toxins. Your kidneys are the filtration plants, your pancreas, the sugar regulators, and your arteries are the roads delivering fuel to every factory. In youth, the traffic flows smoothly. Every signal is on time. The waste is collected, the fuel is delivered, the power keeps flowing. But after 60, things start to change. And most of the routine blood tests your doctor orders are like checking the lights on one street. They don't tell you if the sewage system is backed up, if the electrical substation is overloaded, or if the traffic jams are causing fires in the factories. Your body is whispering warnings long before they show up on standard panels. And here's the kicker. Many everyday habits accelerate the breakdown of this city. Drinking a little too much, skipping strength training, over-relying on carbohydrates, chronic low-grade stress, disrupted sleep. These aren't dramatic. They feel normal, but cumulatively, over decades, they start to corrode your plumbing, fray the wiring, and gum up the engines of your metabolism. For example, insulin resistance, a condition so common it affects more than 50% of people over 60, is essentially a traffic jam in your sugar delivery system. Your pancreas is pumping insulin, the roads are congested, the cells aren't absorbing glucose efficiently, and the factories are running on fumes. You can feel this as fatigue, brain fog, or weight gain, but standard cholesterol tests might still look normal. That's why your doctor can tell you everything is fine, yet you're slowly heading toward type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease. And it's not just insulin. Chronic inflammation, micronutrient deficiencies, subtle thyroid imbalances, these are the silent fires in the city. And the 4 blood tests most doctors routinely order, many of them are distractions. They give a false sense of security. You think you're monitoring your health, but you're really just checking if a single light bulb is on or off when the whole electrical grid is starting to fail. Now, I want to take you deeper into the science. I want you to understand exactly what's happening at the cellular level. And I promise you, this will be both awe-inspiring and empowering, because once you see the inner workings, it's no longer mysterious. You can take control. Let's start with glucose and insulin dynamics, because this is central to metabolic health over 60. Imagine your cells are factories, and glucose is the fuel they need to produce energy. Insulin is the key that unlocks the doors to those factories. In a young, healthy person, the key fits perfectly. The glucose enters, the factory produces energy, and everything hums along. But as we age, the locks on the doors become rusty. The keys don't turn as smoothly, and sometimes the key isn't even recognized. The pancreas, which produces insulin, senses the problem and starts cranking out more keys. At first, this seems fine. The cells eventually get enough fuel, but over time, the system overloads. The pancreas strains, the blood sugar remains elevated for longer periods, and inflammation increases in the blood vessels. Let me walk you through a typical 24-hour cycle for someone over 60 with subtle insulin resistance. In the first 4 hours after breakfast, glucose spikes higher than it should because the cells are sluggish. Insulin surges to try to compensate. During these hours, you might feel okay, but your arteries are experiencing microinflammation. 4 to 8 hours later, the sugar may dip too low, causing fatigue or lightheadedness. 8 to 12 hours after lunch, the pancreas is already stressed for the next meal, and cortisol, the stress hormone, may rise to maintain energy, which further exacerbates the problem. By dinner, the metabolic system is already strained, and over time, these cycles repeat daily, silently eroding your health. Now let's bring in other players: the liver, the kidneys, the thyroid, and your hormones. The liver is your detox hub. It processes not only what you eat, but also hormonal byproducts. As insulin rises, fat storage in the liver increases, which can eventually lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Your kidneys, filtering more glucose and metabolic waste, experience increased stress. Thyroid hormones, which regulate the speed of every metabolic reaction in your city, can start to fall just slightly below optimal. Not enough to trigger the classic hypothyroid diagnosis, but enough to slow the factories, leaving you tired and cold and increasing cardiovascular risk. And here's where the real turning point comes in. There's a biological event, often overlooked, that is absolutely transformative if you know how to support it. It's called autophagy, your body's cellular recycling system. Think of it as a citywide cleanup crew that moves through the factories at night, removing damaged machinery, clearing debris, and even repairing roads. Autophagy doesn't happen constantly. It's triggered by specific metabolic signals, by fasting periods, by exercise, and by proper nutrition. When it activates effectively, it can reverse years of cellular damage, improve insulin sensitivity, enhance immune function, and even support brain health. And here's the part most people don't realize. Standard blood tests don't measure autophagy. You could be doing routine panels every year and still have impaired cellular recycling, silently accelerating aging and disease. Let me say that again, because I want it to land. Autophagy is the moment your body can literally start to heal itself from decades of subtle metabolic stress. And yet, the tests most commonly ordered by your doctor, the ones you think are essential, often miss it entirely. This is why I tell patients over 60 that some of the tests they've been doing for decades are, in fact, unnecessary. They don't provide actionable information, and in some cases, they may even mislead, causing anxiety or inappropriate interventions. Now, let's tackle some myths. I hear them every day in my clinic. People say, "Doctor, I need my cholesterol checked every 3 months," or "I have to test my vitamin D constantly," or "Thyroid tests always catch my problem." Every time I hear these, I have to take a breath because these myths are costing people their health. High-frequency cholesterol testing in people without risk factors doesn't change outcomes. It just creates stress. Vitamin D, yes, it's important, but testing it weekly is unnecessary. It doesn't fluctuate that rapidly. And thyroid panels often miss subtle hormone imbalances if only TSH is measured. This is not only wrong, it's physiologically backwards. We need the tests that truly reflect the underlying metabolic state. Clinical evidence supports this approach. In my own practice, I have hundreds of patients over 60 who are being monitored with standard panels, yet were experiencing metabolic decline. Once we implemented a targeted testing protocol, checking HbA1c, fasting insulin, high-sensitivity CRP for inflammation, and specific lipid subfractions, we identified hidden risk factors. Within 3 to 6 months, with tailored nutrition, intermittent fasting, and targeted exercise, we reversed early metabolic disease, prevented progression to diabetes, and improved cardiovascular markers. Landmark studies out of Japan and Europe reinforce this. One study in Tokyo looked at adults over 65, comparing standard panels to targeted metabolic markers, and found that early intervention based on these markers prevented over 40% of cardiovascular events over 5 years. Now, I want to give you a practical, step-by-step protocol that you can start immediately. The first step is to get the right tests. HbA1c to understand long-term blood sugar, fasting insulin to see how hard your pancreas is working, high-sensitivity CRP to detect inflammation, and a lipid subfraction panel to assess cardiovascular risk beyond standard cholesterol. Once you have these results, we adjust nutrition, emphasize protein at breakfast, include low glycemic vegetables, reduce processed carbs, and maintain healthy fats like olive oil and nuts. Timing is crucial. Morning exercise enhances insulin sensitivity, while resistance training 2 to 3 times per week preserves muscle mass and stimulates autophagy. We implement controlled fasting windows, starting with 12 hours overnight and gradually extending to 16 hours. These changes, combined, create the metabolic environment that allows autophagy to activate, inflammation to subside, and energy to return. Who should be careful? I want to be completely transparent. Pregnant women, individuals with certain endocrine disorders, people on complex medication regimens, or those under extreme stress should consult their physician before implementing fasting or major dietary changes. This is about safety, not restriction. But for the majority of people over 60, these interventions are safe, powerful, and life-changing. I want to bring us full circle to Mrs. Thompson. Remember her fatigue, her subtle anxiety, her everything looks fine blood work? After applying this targeted approach, she regained vitality. Her labs, once unremarkable, now told the full story of her renewed metabolic health. She's living proof that the body, even after decades of wear and tear, has extraordinary capacity to heal when given the right conditions. This isn't a trick, a gimmick, or a fad. It's biology returning to its intended state, a restoration of what your body has always been designed to do. So, I want you to leave today remembering one simple truth. Your blood is speaking. It contains secrets your standard doctor might not be looking for. But with the right tests, the right lifestyle interventions, and the right knowledge, you can catch silent disease early, restore vitality, and dramatically improve your quality of life over 60. Your body is not broken. It's waiting for you to give it the tools it needs to thrive. I want to invite each of you to ask questions, share your experiences, and commit to being proactive. Comment, take notes, and most importantly, believe in your body's incredible capacity to heal. Because once you see the science, once you see the evidence, once you take control, you will never look at blood tests the same way again.